going to just do, try to keep it to the 15 minutes, but I'd hope it's interactive, and we'll ask for some audience participation along the way. So first I'm going to just give you just a few minutes of sort of my story, but then move into sort of 3 sort of lessons learned that I'd love to be able to share with you after 30 years of practice. So a little bit more about my story. So when I came out of law school, I was having this great conversation earlier. Where did you go? Well, I went to the place that paid me the most, right? And so when I came out of law school, I would often use my resume and I'd have to be selling myself. Because if you weren't going to be practicing within sort of Western Massachusetts, Northern Connecticut, it becomes a bit of a problem because they're not quite sure they've ever heard of the law school. Nonetheless, is it accredited, right? So you know, you take the little like brochure with you and like a salesperson along the way. But I was fortunate enough to start with IBM. At that time, IBM only hired from law school. It didn't hire laterally, and so I was with IBM for 18 years. I moved around. You know, I've been moved for a number of different times, but got wonderful opportunities to go from New York to Florida to Raleigh, North Carolina to Paris, and also to Madrid, and then back to New York City. So doing all kinds of work. But then it was a great opportunity presented itself to be able to be the general counsel of one of my old clients at IBM. He became the CEO and he asked me to join him. Now, for some of you, I know that you were quite early, but I assure you, this was a client that really was very difficult, right? And so I used to have great analogies for him that, you know, he knew everything. And so my ability to be able to move him, he was like a cruise ship. Right? And every time I saw him, I could never get him to agree with me, but just like a few degrees, and then you try again, you know, and a few more degrees to be able to get him sort of on the right path. But honestly, I spent 8 years there. I then moved both my sons. I have a son. I look around you, and a lot of you are my son's ages, right? So I have a son that's 23 and a son that is 25, and they went to college, and I left them. It's great. So I moved from the East Coast all the way to the West Coast, and I went to be the general counsel of Avaya, which was a challenging 3 years in which I left Avaya much, you know, I'd like to think I left Avaya in a better place than where I started because we went through restructuring. So for those of you who are thinking about bankruptcy, it really is painful, okay, at least on the company side, let me tell you. But they've emerged, public company again, and doing just fine. And then I had the wonderful opportunity to be able to come and be the general counsel of VMware and joined Brooks. So I will tell you, I did not have a plan. I know that there are a lot of you in the audience who do have a plan. My plan was challenging job and get paid well. That was my plan, right? So thanks to Nikki, there's a lot more planning you need to do, right? I am not the model by any stretch of the imagination. But it's been a very interesting journey. But honestly, you know, part of the being sort of humble is also being able to recognize. I wish there was you know, PracticePro and Nikki at the time when I was going through law school. So it's an incredible opportunity that I'm so glad that you all have had a chance or will have a chance to be able to participate in. So what I was able to, I am sort of the product of lots and lots of people, right, who really believed in me and pushed me to levels that I never even thought that I would be able to achieve. And for that, I am not only, you know, sort of humble, but I am also grateful, and I have, you know, spent 30 years working as a lawyer, and it is a pleasure to be able to give back, right? That's why we want to participate, and that's why we do a lot of different programs at VMware, and I've done those similar type programs wherever I've been, because it is really a pleasure. So, from sort of a show of hands, you know, why don't you just to help me with the audience participation? How many women do you think, not even just people of color, how many women do you think I've ever worked for? Anyone want to guess?
One.
Any?
Two, maybe two.
Zero. Right? 0. 55 years old. lots of different jobs, never worked for a woman. Okay? How about a person of color?
0.
0. Right? That says something, right? Right there. Now, what I want to be able to sort of turn that into is a little bit more of a context of some of the lessons learned that I've I have lots of them. You know, poor Brooks will know that I can go on forever. You know, so I promise you, I will not. I have lots of stories, right? But it's very true. So I will keep it to 3 short sort of lessons learned, but love a little bit of that audience participation again. That says, how many of you think of yourselves as sort of overachievers? I think you all are, right? I mean, really, absolutely. And so, number 1 lesson learned that you learn really early on, but you know, you won't listen to me in the beginning. I know you won't. But you'll like stand back, and a few years later, you'll be like, you know, maybe she had something there. Which is, this career is really more of a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. Often when you look at the hands of the number of people where you're the first to go to college or you're first to go to law school, you are overachievers. You have been able to do things that many other people were not able to do. And part of it is sort of not just your smarts, but your perseverance, your drive, your focus. But at some point in time, sort of give yourself a break. Right? It is a marathon. There'll be ups, there'll be downs, and don't hold yourselves to unattainable standards, because it is a marathon. It's going to keep going. There'll be lots and lots of different sort of, opportunities in your life, right? Don't obsess, right? And keep yourself, oh my God, I didn't meet it at this level, right? It's really okay, right? It's really a journey. It is not a sprint. Second one, this one's sort of my favorite, and very high tech, right? If you notice that, right? I feel good. San Francisco, Silicon Valley, work for a Silicon Valley tech company, and I bring a chart, right? Hand done by myself. Right? Look at that. So, as a general counsel for 30 years, I've worked with lots of young lawyers. Love to do that, right? But I've been trying to be able to get those young lawyers to be more practical. Sooner rather than later. I'd like to give them the judgment that I've had over 30 years like that. I don't want folks like yourselves to have to wait 30 years before you're able to sort of be practical and understand where to spend your time, where to spend your energy or effort, and sort of focus on sort of what you need to do in life, but also in relationship to legal issues. So I'm going to give you 2, right? So I've been working on this for a long time. And then I worked for, at VIA, I worked for a CEO that I absolutely loved. However, everything had to be in a 2x2, okay? Now I'm a lawyer. I am not a mathematician. I'm not an engineer. Being able to I think of being a lawyer as like an art, not a science. However, in order to communicate with them, right, I needed to be able to put everything sort of in a 2x2. So I was able to actually sort of convert some of the efforts that I've had in relationship to risk assessments into that simple 2x2, okay? And so what does it do? It sort of just measures the likeliness of something to occur, right? And the impact to the client, okay? So obviously, if you're here and you sort of plot something here, how much time would you spend on it? Not much, right? If it's here, how much time would you spend on it? How much money would you spend on it? A lot more, right? So I'm going to give you just 2 examples of sort of situations that if my team sort of use it. I get lots of issues that get escalated to me because as lawyers, one of the things that they forget to tell you, especially as you sort of go in-house, right, is that you don't get fired, right, for being too conservative. Who gets fired for being too conservative as a lawyer, right? But if you are going to be able to be in-house and you're going to help your clients, you need to sort of gauge the risk, right? You need to be able to sort of learn, where you sort of draw the line, and where you need to be able to spend more time, more money, more energy, versus not so much, right? So I had, my example at the end here is, I had an IP lawyer, and we had already spent a lot of money on a contest, an internal contest in relationship to sales. And it was the year of the Olympics, and they were using the rings, and there were going to be all kinds of materials, but only internal sales-related contest, right? How much time would you spend on that? It's already created. It's not like you're giving advice before it's created. So they've already spent money, they've already starting to roll it out, right? So let's just look at it and say, okay, the likeliness for something to occur, right, for the Olympic Committee to come after my little sales activity, right? So I'm not telling you to violate the law, I'm just telling you it already exists, okay? How likely is it that it's going to happen? Okay? Not so likely, okay? But what's the impact to the client, right? You know, so it's really like the impact on the business. What will happen, right, if the Olympic Committee says, oh my goodness, right? Stop doing that, right? What are we going to do? Stop. Right? Are they going to ask for damages? Not likely. They're just going to ask you, stop. Now, I'm not saying that it's not an important legal matter. What I'm asking is, if you were in a company, would you spend a lot of time, money, and energy on something like that? Not so much, right? Now, give you the other one, where we were in procurement deal. We had already signed the deal, already completed, and then the vendor comes back and says, if you just change some of the terms that relate to sort of accounting, right, we'll give you a lot more, right? We'll give you, extended payment terms, we'll give you licensing, we'll give you much more expansive licensing-related matters, but I want to be able to change some of the provisions of the agreement, right, as it relates to, because it impacts my accounting, okay? When you look at sort of the impact to, what would the potential issue? It's like aiding and abetting accounting fraud, okay? Maybe we should slow down, okay? Right? Maybe it isn't aiding and abetting accounting fraud, but I still think that the answer is you get a little bit suspicious where they before weren't willing to give you something, and now all of a sudden they're willing to give you something. Maybe the answer is we need to sort of slow down. And so I was working for CA at the time, okay? I was the General Counsel of CA, and for all of you, they no longer exist because they were bought by Broadcom this past year. But for those of you who, I'm way too old. So when I started there was a monitor there because they were convicted of accounting fraud, right? So if you were working at the company after the general counsel that preceded you went to jail, and you had that kind of situation, where would you put that, right? A little bit over here, there, right? So that's enough for my sort of second piece, but this is just something, I hope it helps you. What I try to use it with, and Brooks could help you, is that I use it with my team all the time, because what I'm trying to get the teams to do, especially for the more junior lawyers, to be able to just, part of the scenario is talking through, like with your colleagues, your managers, right, your friends, where it should be, right, on sort of the graph. Right? Because it's not so easy. Someone may put it in, one sector versus another. And so it's just a great sort of visual that you can do something quickly and be able to say, how much time, how much energy and resource am I going to sort of put into it? And I think it allows people to sort of move a little quicker, has something visual that you can talk through it. Because if I put it here, you put it here, why did you do that? Right? Great learning sort of exercise, something very simple. Okay? And my last one is going to be very strange, right? But it came up earlier in the discussion. I don't think it happens very often, but my last lesson learned is never to like your job that much. Okay? And why do I say that? Right? Because when you look at lawyers who end up in trouble, a good deal of those situations are lawyers who like their job a bit too much. Right? And especially general counsels who like their job a little too much, okay? And they weren't ready to be able to walk out the door if they're not comfortable with what the company is doing or what you've been asked to do, okay? So part of it as a leader, right, to me it's so important is that is what that's sort of a mantra that I've used since I became a general counsel. And in good part, it's not just my ethics, but it's the ethics of my team, right? I need to be able to make sure that I'm leading a team, that they feel comfortable that I have their back, right? That when they sort of stand up for things that they feel, from an ethical or legal perspective is inappropriate, that they're going to draw the line, and that I am right there behind them, right? And I will be the first one out the door, okay? So I will tell you that it's just a reminder of, it doesn't happen that often, but I would tell you as a general counsel in all three companies, right? You do get to those critical situations in which, are you comfortable defending the company, based on sort of what they want to do, or are you not, right? And are you willing to be able to sort of stand up? Like, as I used to joke around with in IBM, it's like, you could go to jail, but I'm not going with you. Right? I'm happy to be able to bring you goodies, visit you, but now, most, in these kind of situations, they're not usually sort of jail-related issues, right? But they're issues that I'm not comfortable. If I'm not comfortable defending the company, I'm not doing it, right? And I don't like the job enough to be able to say that I'm going to sit in a situation in which I'm not comfortable, right? Because, as a lawyer, right, your integrity is really, your experience and your integrity is all you have, right? And so, just something for you to keep in mind. My three sort of lessons learned. Unfortunately, there's 15 minutes. I have many more, but I can't do it, right? I have to go and let you enjoy your Friday night. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.